The Apollo GX series receivers may be used to navigate the two kinds of GPS non-precision approaches currently available. The GPS-only approach, which relies entirely on GPS navigation, and the GPS overlay to an existing non-precision approach. The overlay approach uses GPS positioning in place of the method originally specified. If the overlay approach shows GPS in bold letters, the underlying nav aid is not required. However, if GPS is shown in parentheses, the underlying nav equipment is required to be installed and functional, though the pilot need not monitor anything but the GPS receiver. Let's see how this works in a real approach. At about 30 nautical miles out from the destination, the receiver asks if you want to enable the approach. If yes, press Enter. If you do not enable the approach at this point, the Enable Approach message will be repeated just before the final approach fix. When you select Enter, the instrument asks for the local altimeter setting. Use the large and small knobs, enter the setting, and return to the nav mode. You are now in the approach transition phase. The approach annunciator light comes on steady, and the CDI switches from 5-mile sensitivity to 1 mile on each side of your track. Just before you reach the initial approach fix, a message will announce a waypoint arrival alert. Acknowledge the message and you will see the desired track to the next approach waypoint. 30 nautical miles out from the destination is also a good place to consider selecting Auto Zoom in the map scale window. Once you select Auto, the map will continuously readjust its scale to ensure that both your present position and your destination are visible at all times. Shortly before you reach the final approach fix, and if you are not on hold, the active light will indicate that you are about to transition to the approach active phase. By the time you reach the final approach fix, CDI sensitivity will be fixed at 0.3 of a mile on each side of your track. The receiver will verify that it is working properly, and when it is satisfied that everything is in order, the active light will remain steady on. If the active light does not come on steady, do not continue the approach. As you pass the final approach fix, the missed approach point now becomes the active waypoint. Sequencing is automatically suspended, and the OBS hold annunciator is on. Anytime in the approach active phase that you wish to cancel the approach, simply press the OBS hold key. This will return you to approach transition. The approach active light will go out, the CDI will scale back to 1 nautical mile sensitivity, and the active waypoint becomes the missed approach hold point. Then fly to the missed approach point or hold as instructed. Once you have canceled the active approach, it can only be activated again by crossing the final approach fix inbound. All right, you've flown the approach and you are nearing the missed approach point. Now you must choose to land or fly the published missed approach procedure. The normal waypoint alert message tells you that you've reached the missed approach point, which you acknowledge and return to nav or map. We will fly the missed approach procedure, so pressing the OBS hold annunciator cancels the approach and takes the system off hold. The Apollo GX receiver will sequence to the next waypoint. Now fly the procedure. Throughout instrument approaches, the IFR pilot has a constant need to time various approach segments. From the nav page, turn the large knob 3 clicks left to reach the countdown timer. Select the timer to change countdown value, then enter to begin counting. Once the timer reaches 0, a message will alert the pilot that the countdown timer has expired. Selecting the timer again will automatically insert the last value used, and enter will again start the timer counting. For the experienced IFR pilot, the Apollo GX navigation receiver provides in-depth information for every non-precision approach in the database. As you become familiar with the more common Apollo operations, we suggest that you return to your user's manual periodically to learn the more advanced features available to you and incorporate them into your IFR toolkit. Now that you've seen the Apollo GX receiver in generic IFR in-route and approach operations, let's fly some actual GPS approaches to give you an idea of what they look like using the GX receivers from tomorrow, and to show you some of the many advanced GX features available to you. We'll start with a basic GPS approach to Nampa, Idaho. We are flying more than 30 nautical miles from Nampa, so we'll load the approach. Press Select, then Enter to list the approaches. Scroll through the approaches with the small knob. We'll choose GPS 11 with Emmett as the initial approach fix, then Enter. At 30 nautical miles from the airport, a message asks you to enable the approach. Enter. The approach annunciator is now on steady. Now use the small knob to enter the local altimeter setting. Now returning to the moving map display, you will see that the destination is intersection Emmett. Fly to Emmett and turn toward Parmo. Shortly before Parmo, an arrival alert prepares you for your next turn. How far before reaching Parmo this happens depends on your ground speed. Once you reach Parmo, you'll be instructed to turn toward Defkey, the final approach fix. Just before Defkey, the approach active annunciator begins to flash, signaling the transition to the approach active phase. The CDI now begins to scale down to 0.3 mile sensitivity. The OBS hold and approach active annunciator lights are on steady as you pass Defkey, the final approach fix. If the approach light is not on steady, abort the approach. Before reaching runway 11, an arrival message signals you to prepare to land or execute a missed approach. As this is just practice, we'll cancel the approach active operation by pressing OBS hold. Now you have returned to the approach transition phase. Sequencing has resumed, CDI sensitivity is back to 1 nautical mile, and NEMU now becomes the missed approach holding point. At this point, it may be useful to refer to the manual, review this approach again, and explore the published missed approach procedures.